Okay.
Yeah.
Be'ezras Hashem, today's daf is daf Kuf Hey. We're going to begin in Mamish on the daf Kuf Dalet Amud Beis at the bottom. So let me just bring it up here on the bottom of the page. We learned in our Mishnah, I'll just bring it up a little graphic over here that I have here. Let me just print it nicely. Our Mishnah, this is the Mishnah. So just to give it to you clear, here's the Mishnah right in front of you. We know that there are three things that you need to do for a chalitza. Remove the shoe. You have to spit. The lady has to spit, and they have to say kriya. They have to say something before this process and something after the process. We learned in the pasuk va'amra va'amra. So Mishnah said that if you just did the removal of the shoe and you spit, and the lady forgot to say the psukim in the Torah, it's kosher chalitza. And then the Mishnah describes over here that if you remove the shoe, if you forgot to remove the shoe, but you spit and you recited, you forgot to remove the shoe, and you said the psukim, and you also spit, but forgot to remove the shoe, it's a pasala chalitza. Now,
enough spit.
Yeah. So what happens, the Mishnah says, the lady took off the shoe of the Yavam, did not do the spitting, and said the kriya in the psukim. So there is a machlokes between Rabbi Lezer, it says it's pasul, and Rabbi Kiva says it's kosher.
Kosher, yeah.
Kosher. So even if you forgot to spit, Rabbi Kiva says it's kosher. So the Gemara says over here before that Shmuel said, they sent to the father of Shmuel, Nish Shmuel, the Tataf in Shmuel. What happens if Yevama just did the spit? Just did the spit, didn't do anything else. So he said that from his words, it implied that really you have to redo the chalitza, but it's a chalitza enough that Yibam is off the table. That if any of the brothers want to do Yibam, it's totally off the table because it's a quasi chalitza. So the Gemara said Avur de Shmuel could not have been according to Rabbi Akiva, because we just learned Rabbi Akiva holds that spit, even in a regular chalitza, if you did 2 out of 3, if you forgot to do the spit, it's still a kosher chalitza. So how could just spitting alone cause a quasi chalitza? It's almost like spitting is not necessary, according to Rabbi Akiva. That's what the Gemara said. That's what the Gemara says. So the Gemara is going to prove that even Rabbi Akiva holds that if you just do a spit, it also does something, even if you didn't do anything else, and it also calls it like a chalitza pasula, and Yibam is off the table. No, none of the brothers could do Yibam. So the Gemara says, Umi Omar Rabbi Akiva, Rekika Loi Pasla. Did Rabbi Akiva said that if you just spit and you don't do anything else, it doesn't passel the other brothers from doing chalitza. It doesn't invalidate other brothers from doing Yibam. But Tanya, we learned in a brisa. And here, the Bryce is discussing if you did 1 out of 3. Choltzev, you just took off the shoe. Veloy, we go to the top of the page. Veloy rakakov, veloy kara. You didn't spit and you didn't read the psukim. So you just took off the shoe. The Bryce says 1 out of 3 is even good. Chalitzasa kashera. Now, even our Mishnah is discussing if you did 2 out of 3. This Bryce says if you did just the taking off the shoe, the chalitza is kosher.
Kosher.
Rakakov, you just did the spit. Veloy choltza. And you didn't take off the shoe. V'loy kara, she didn't read the psukim in the chumash, right? Chalitza psula. The chalitza is pasul. Now notice this word, chalitza psula. It means that it's invalidated, but what the Gemara is going to learn now, that it does something that it's enough of a chalitza to invalidate any brother to do Yibam, any of the other brothers. You don't say, oh, it's the chalitza is pasul, so let's another brother decide if he wants to do Yibam. No, once you had the spitting ceremony, the chalitza is pasul, but Yibam is off the table. But what happens is the brisa kar off. If you read the psukim in the chumash. Now we discussed this yesterday. When the Yavama walks into Besdin, she has to say what it says in the chumash. This person doesn't want to do Yibam with me. And they ask her, do you want to do Yibam with him? And he has to say in Hebrew, no, I don't want to do Yibam to her. And then they do the whole process. And then after the process of the spitting in the shoe, they call out, Kacha, this is what should be done. She says, this is what should be done to a man who doesn't want to marry his brother's wife. So if they did all these reading of the Chumash, and they didn't spit and they didn't do the chalitza, you have nothing to be concerned about. So that's a different thing. That's trying to imply that you didn't do anything. And it's not, and if another brother decides to do Yibam, that's also good because you didn't do anything. You just read Psukim. Mani, who's the author of this brisa? If it's Rabbi Elazar, Rabbi Elazar requires, Rabbi Elazar in our Mishnah says that everything is necessary. The chalitza and the kriya and the rekika, the spitting is very necessary. So this brisa cannot be the author of Rabbi Elazar. Rabbi Elazar says that anything that is required for the woman to do on the man, and beyond that, taking off the shoe and spitting, that is invalid. If she doesn't do it, it holds up the chalitza. And here, our Mishnah says if the Brisa says if you did 1 out of 3, it's kosher. So Rabbi Elazar cannot be the author. He requires two items to make a kosher chalitza. Elapshite Rabbi Kiva, it must be Rabbi Kiva. Uktani in the Brisa says, if you did the spit alone and you didn't do chalitza and you didn't read, chalitza se psula, the chalitza is paso. So Rabbi Kiva has an odd opinion. He says that if you did chalitza and you did kriya and you forgot and you didn't do rakika spitting, it's kosher. Because it seems that spitting is not so important. Nevertheless, if you just did the spit, already it's like a quasi chalitza where it takes yibam off the table for the other brothers, and you just have to redo the chalitza. So, Laman, what does this mean? The chalitza is psula. Ilema la'alma, that she can't marry somebody else. If she just did the spit, she can't marry somebody else. Pshita, that's simple. Bihava chalitza dishtari la'alma. Is it a kosher chalitza that it was permitted? Alalav, what means la'achen, to the brothers. Shmami no. So from here we have a proof. That Rabbi Akiva will hold that rakika is enough to invalidate this woman from ever having yibam. Hi, Alan. We're just like
thank you.
We're a little bit off the top of Daf Kuf Hey, Ula Rabbi Akiva. Okay. So the Gemara is now asking a question according to Rabbi Akiva. Rabbi Akiva said that if you just do kriya alone without the other things, without chalitza and without chalitza and rakika, kriya alone, just reading psukim, then nothing. She could still do yibam. But if you do spitting alone without the other two, it's a quasi chalitza, and yibam is now off the table. She can't do yibam with any other brothers. So the Gemara's question is, since both are totally not necessary, my shana rikika, why is there a gzera d'Rabbanan that if she just had spitting according to Rabbi Akiva, she can't have a yibam anymore? Umay shana kriya, why is it if they just read psukim and then somehow they didn't do anything else, why is it that the woman could have a yibam with the other brothers? She didn't have a chalitza. Answer the Gemara, because nobody will make a mistake. Kriya, the isa bein batchila bein b'soif. The kriya part of the process is a reading done when she walks into Bezdin and when she finishes the process. When she walks into Bezdin, she says, oh, this man, I asked him to do yibam to me in Hebrew, and he did not want to do that. So therefore, loy michalfe, nobody's going to make a mistake that a woman after chalitza could do yibam, because people will know they only did the initial reading. They didn't do the process, and that's why she's getting, if she just had that, people will walk away and say, if she did yibam, they'll be okay with it. They're never going to say that a woman who had chalitza can now turn around and have yibam with another brother. But rakika, the spitting part of the process is after taking off the shoe. So the bechila lessa, you don't do it in the beginning. You do it probably in the middle part, where after you take off the shoe, you spit. So people who walked into the Bezdin, remember when they did these chalitza processes, they invited the whole yeshiva. Everybody came. So let's say a yeshiva bacher walked in and he sees a woman spit. Right? She doesn't know that this woman did not take off the shoe. And if we allow this woman to get married, to do a yibam with her other brothers, he's going to walk away from his whole learning and say, after you do chalitza, she could still do a yibam. Miklefe, we're going to come and give a chalitza to the other brothers. After a chalitza, we're going to permit women to marry, to do yibum with the other brothers. That's why Rabbi Kiva made the gezerah that if you just do a spit, now it's not just any spit that the Yavama spit, it's you're spitting in the Bezdin. Why she didn't do anything else? She walked out. She got angry. She walked out. She gave a spit and she walked out. So that's there. Rabbi Akiva will say that she no longer can do Yavama. She can no longer do Yibam with the other brothers. The Ika de Amris. Others say that the question to Avu de Shmuel was something else. Yavama shurakaka tachloitz. If she did the spits, then she could take off the shoe. Let's say the Yavama walked in not knowing anything. The rabbi in charge of the whole chalitza process knows that you're supposed to do spitting and taking off shoe, and she spat first, so he doesn't know, oh, what should you do? Take off the shoe second. Even though you're supposed to do spitting, you're taking off the shoe first and then spit, but she did the opposite. He says, just take off the shoe and don't make her spit again. The Einat Sricha Lorek Pamacharis. Avu de Shmuel says, don't make her spit again. Why? Okay, listen to the story. There was a case that they came to Rabbi Abi. You would think, have a case of a woman who needed chalitza. Have a Yosef Rabbi Abba Babama Kameh. Rabbi Abba Mama was sitting in front of Rabbi Ami, and they're observing how Rabbi Ami oversees a chalitza story. And apparently, Rakaka, she gave her right away a spit, didn't ask Rabbi Ami, she gave a spit, Mikami de Tachalites before she took off the man's shoe. Amalei Rabbi Ami, so Rabbi Ami said, Chalites now take off the shoe, Vishara la Tigra, and this woman who's an aggressive woman is now permitted to marry anybody else. Amalei Rabbi Abba, who was an observer at this chalitza, he said, Vabina Merik, we need her to spit. And So she didn't spit. She took off the shoe and didn't spit. So the Gemara, Rabbi Ami answered, Harakakala. She spat before taking off the shoe. So Rabbi Abba asked, V'serik, let her spit. V'serik, bekach. What would happen? What would be so wrong if she spat again after taking off the shoe? She spit once, take off the shoe, and spit again to do it like the way the Torah says it. Answers Rabbi Ami, he says, I don't want her to spit again because nafik minei churba, some destruction can happen. Why? The amrit tihad v'seirek. If this is like a gezerah to a gezerah. If you're going to tell her to spit again, people will say, Rikika kamaisa leis b'mashasha. The first time she spit was invalid, so it doesn't mean anything. So we're requiring her to spit again. So what's going to happen is that it's going to come out that if a woman is just going to spit, we're not going to say that she's invalid from doing a yibum with the other brothers, because people walking out from this story and says that if she just spit, there's no problem with it. There's no problem of marrying the other brothers. And we just told you that Rabbi Akiva said that if a woman just spit, that chalitza is a quasi chalitza. She cannot marry the brothers. So it's like a gezerah for a gezerah. So we keep it that if the woman happened to have spit prior to taking off the shoe, we don't let her spit again. You just take off the shoe and that's it. Because if we did that, we will come a chalitza to the brothers. So the Gemara asks, but wait a second, how could you allow a woman to spit first? We needed to do it the way, the order it's written in the Torah. The Torah said, do it in this order. Take off the shoe and then spit. So the Gemara says, "Kisidran loyma akva." Rabbi Ami said the order in the Chumash is not upholding the chalitza. If you did it in the reverse order, it's also okay. Who saw that? He thought Rabbi Babam said Rabbi Ami must be pushing me off. Nafik dak v'aksha, but then he researched the man and found a brisa that says exactly the Tanya bein sheikdim chalitza l'rikika bein sheikdim rikika l'chalitza. Whether you put the shoe before the spitting or you spit before the shoe, which was the normal way, masha also you did it good. I mean, it doesn't. The order doesn't matter, and therefore you can have the woman spit first and then take off the shoe. New Gemara, Levi. This is interesting, Gemara. Now, Levi Nafik l'Kiyasa. Levi took a rabbi's position in the suburbs, somewhere where he lived. They invited him to be the rabbi. So what do? They ask him questions, see if he knows the answer. Boymene, they asked him a question. Yidemes, a woman loyalenu who doesn't have hands, mahu shetachlitz, can she do a chalitza? Because she can't pull off the shoe. All she can do is rip the shoe with her teeth, but she can't pull off the shoe. Can a chalitza be valid if she has no hands? Another question. Question number 2, they ask him, Yavama masharaka kadam mahu. If the Yavama just spit up blood, instead of, she spit up blood, instead of spitting out saliva, is it a kosher chalitza? The next thing they ask him, question number 3, is that there is a pasuk in Daniel when the Malach told Daniel what's going on in heaven. And the Malach uses the expression, Aval agid lecha, I'm going to tell you, as harashum b'ksav, that is written down in writing, emes, that this is what it's going to happen, is going to be true. So they wrote something down in heaven that's true, that it's going to happen. So the Gemara asked, so they asked him, what does that pasuk mean? Are things written in heaven that are not going to come true, are not true? Why do you have to tell me that if it's written in heaven, it's true? Everything that's written in heaven is true. So the Gemara says, Lo yahava biyadeh. He didn't have the answer. So you would think that he resigned and didn't care about what the answer is. But these people, these Admaroim of great tzaddikim, they had humility. Also, Shol ben Midrash. So he went to the Beis Medrash and asked the Chevra learning the Beis Medrash these questions. Amorlei, they answered him all 3 questions. First of all, if a woman doesn't have hands, mikse v'choltza biyad. Does the pasuk say that she has to take the shoe off with her hands? It just says v'choltza nali, take off the shoe. Doesn't matter if she doesn't have no hands. If she rips it off with her hands, if she's handicapped, she can still do a chalitza. What about spitting up blood? Umiksev v'yaka, right? That she has to spit only saliva. She can use the saliva along with the blood as well. Aval agit lecha harashim b'ksav emes. How do you answer that question? Is there something written in heaven that's not truthful? Like Kasha, when God issues a decree, a bad decree, that against a person, and he swears that this is going to happen, such that, for example, in the Chumash you find God swore to Moshe Rabbeinu, you're never coming into Eretz Yisrael. So then it's emes. There's no way to break it. If there is God didn't give an oath that he's going to make it come true, he's giving you a leeway that you can still break the gezerah. You can break the bad decree. Rabbi Shmuel bar Abami, the Amar Rabbi Shmuel bar Ami Am Rabbi Yosin, he explained it further. Benayin, how do I know? L'gzar din, a God chas v'sholem makes a gzar din, sheyesh imo shvua she'enim iskareya. When God makes a shvua, and it'll never be ripped up. It'll always come true. There's no way to get around it. Shenema, because the pasuk says, by the children of Eli, who were mishandling, leading the Mishkan. They were aggressive against the people, forcing them to give over their meat from their karbonis when they didn't have a right to, and they were eating the meat prior to bringing it on the mizbeach. So the pasuk says about Eli and his 2 children, Chafni and Pinchas, I swear that the house of Eli, they're going to die young. All his kids are going to die young, and the whole family. No matter what kind of karbonos they're going to bring and try to appease me, God says, I swear I'll never forgive them. So the Gemara says a statement. Even though God swore he's never going to forgive them, God will never take karbonos to forgive them. If they push themselves to learn extra words of Torah, God would forgive them. Abaya says for another thing. They will not get forgiven with karbonos. They with kindness. If they excel in kindness with other people, they will have this gzera somewhat ameliorated. So the Gemara says, Rabba v'Rabbayad with the base Elu Kasi. Rabba and Abaya came from the house of Eli. They were Kahanim, and therefore they were destined to die very, very young. Rabba, the Osik B'Torah, Rabba spent his life learning, immersed in Torah, Chaya Abrin Shin. He only lived to 40 years old. Abaya, the Osik B'Torah, Ubi Gemilas Chasadim, he was busy with Torah and Gemilas Chasadim. He combined the 1-2 punch. He lived shit and shnin, he left for 60 years. Tana Rabbanan, the rabbis taught, Mishpacha Achas Hayu B'Yerushalayim. There was one family in Yerushalayim, And what happened? A lot of the family was dying at 18 years old. They came to notify Rabbi Yochanan Mizaki about this strange phenomenon with this particular family. So he said to them, maybe your lineage comes from Eli. When it says God swore, anybody coming from your house will die when they're young, when they're very, very young. So they searched, and they probably were from the house of Eli. That's why their offspring were dying at 18 years old. So he advised them, for the antidote is to go busy yourself in Torah, and you will live. Exert yourself. They exerted themselves in learning Torah. And they would call him the family of Yochanan on his name. So you could learn from this, even though we're not from Beis Eli, if a Loyalenu has a situation that he has a sickness, with learning Torah, and exerting himself from Torah, he can actually add years to his life, even though, according to the statistically speaking, he's supposed to not live that long, but the extra exerting himself for learning Torah, we see adds years to one's life. Amar Shmuel bar Inya. Amarav, another statement. How do I know? A edict against a tzibur is never signed. So Gemara says God doesn't sign it, and so therefore it doesn't come true. So the Gemara says it doesn't. It's signed. So says, no matter what kind of soap or detergent you're going to use, your stain of the sin of the egel is right in front of me. So it always remains. It's like the God signed on it, so to speak, and it's in his book. So Elo, what Rav meant say, how do you know that if this edict against the tzibur, if it gets ripped up, even if it was sealed? Shnema, the pasuk says, "Mi kashem lekenu b'chol kareinu elam." The pasuk says, "Who's like our God, who's specifically caring for us, that he annuls our edicts anytime we pray to him." So Gemara asks a contradiction. That means you're telling me that at any time you could pray to God. But the pasuk says, you could only seek out Hashem when he is found. And that implies that there's sometimes God is not there. No matter how much you're going to pray, he's not going to be listening. Loikasha, it's not difficult. An individual, when he prays, not always God is there, available to listen to him. But when an entire congregation davens for one thing, God is always there, and he's always listening. Yochid Amos. So when is the most opportune time where an individual can feel connected to God and can pray? These are the 10 days between Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, and those are the 10 that God is almost very near to a person for prayer and for tshuva. They sent a message to Abu Shmuel, and he paskin Yevamos Shiraka Gadam Tachleitz. A Yavama that spit up blood, right, can do chalitza. That's a good chalitza, because it's impossible for her to have spit up blood without some residue of saliva there. So even though there's blood, but there's also saliva, it's a kosher chalitza. So the Gemara says, Meiseve, they asked against Abu Shmuel, we know that a zav, when he spits, whatever comes out of his mouth makes him tummy. That spit is tummy. But the Brisa says if blood would come out of his mouth, it would not be tummy, because that's blood. And the Torah, what normally comes out and is that's tummy is saliva. The ain dam yotzim epiv piyama tummy elatar. Blood coming out of the mouth is not from the mouth, and therefore it's tar. So how could you say by chalitza the spitting up of blood is good? And says the Gemara, loikasha kam b'moitzeses, if she sucks out the blood that's in her mouth and then spits it out, so then the blood is mixed with saliva, that's a kosher chalitza. Kan, by the zav case, b'shoisis, it's just, there's a wound in the mouth that's just gushing blood without mixing with any saliva. So if it's just blood leaving the mouth, then that's not considered tameh by the zav. Gemara continues. The Mishnah says, "Cheirish nechlats." That a yavam who's an imbecile, basically. So the chalitza is a psula. It's a apostle chalitza. Amar Rav Yehuda Amar Rav Zu Divrei Rab Meir. We're on Kofhei Amid Beis. That's the words of Rab Meir. Chachamim said ein chalitzas katan klum. So what they're going on in the Mishnah, it says that let's say one of the yavam is a katan under bar mitzvah. Rab Meir says it's a quasi chalitza. It's a chalitza psula. We know what that means already. That it's now yibum is off the table. So the Rav Yehuda said in the name of Rav, that Mishnah, the author of Rav Mishnah is Rab Meir. But Chachamim says if a katan, a kid under bar mitzvah did chalitza, was chalitza done with him, that's the better way to say it. It doesn't mean anything. And that woman, even though she did a chalitza to the katan, she can still do yibum with the other older brothers. Now the Mishnah says, katana shecholza. The katana that did the chalitza, in other words, she was married, her husband died, and she's under bas mitzvah. She who did the chalitza, it's a pasala chalitza. She has to redo the chalitza when she turns over bas mitzvah. Amar Rav Yehuda Amar Rav Zu Divrei Meir. Again, our Mishnah goes according to Rav Meir. The Amar Ish Ksiba Parsha Makshina Ish Al Ish. The Torah says that about a woman. It says V'lo Yachboitz Ha Ish. So the yavam has to be a male, and just like the yavam has to be over bar mitzvah, so we compare that the yavama, the woman, also has to be over bas mitzvah. Avol, but Chachamim disagree. He says ish ksiba parsha. Only the yavam, the man, has to be over bar mitzvah. Isha, but the yavama, the woman, ben gedola ben katana, even if she's under bas mitzvah, it's go. It's okay, because the Torah says but also yivimtei hashara. The Torah calls her the yavama. It doesn't call her the woman. So the fact that the Torah leaves out, doesn't call her the woman, therefore it implies that she does not have to be over bas mitzvah to validate a chalitza. In fact, she can have a good chalitza according to the Chachamim, even if she's under bas mitzvah. Man Chachamim, who is the Chachamim? Rabbi Yossi. This is Rabbi Yossi. Now the Gemara says a nice story. How you see Rabbi Yossi was the one that held that a woman, even if she's under bas mitzvah, is kosher, can do a kosher chalitza. Says the Gemara that Rab Shimon bar Rabbi Avi Yosvi. Rab Shimon and Rab Chia, the son of Rabbi, was sitting. They had a discussion. Ba'omar, and they had a discussion. When you start your Shemoneh Esrei, what are you supposed to think about? Right? You're not supposed to think about that God's in front of you. What you are thinking about is that you're aiming your prayer towards the Eretz Yisrael. So therefore, Hamaspalo, one of them said, when you pray Shemoneh Esrei, Tzorach Shitin Einav Lamata, you should focus your eyes downward. Why? Because when you look down, the whole earth is connected. So it's as if you're connecting to Israel. And you want your prayers to take the highway straight to Israel. My eyes and heart will be in Israel all my days. So what does that mean? Every time I'm praying, I'm thinking about Israel, because that's the way that the prayer doesn't go straight up to heaven. There's a door in Israel where it goes there and then goes up to heaven. The Chadama, and one said, no, Einav Lamata. Once the Beis Hamikdash was destroyed, then you just look above. You put your eyes towards heaven. Shnema, Enisa Levavenu El Kapayim. I lift my heart to where my hands are raised. I raise my hands, my heart to my hands. So also Rabbi Yishmael, Rabbi Yossi Gabai, and Rabbi Yishmael, Rabbi Yossi joined in on the conversation between Rabbi Shimon and Rabbi Chia. Amalu b'mayasik that he say. What are you discussing? We're talking about how to pray. This is what my father Rabbi Yossi would say. Hamaspalel, do both things. You put your eyes towards the ground to focus your intention towards Israel. The liboy and your heart, your emotions, lamala, should think about the Shechina in heaven. Today, so you should think about these two psukim. You have to think about, in addition to thinking about God answering your prayers, you also have to think about how great God is. So maybe if you think about how big the universe is, and you get some idea that way to think about Hashem before you pray Shemoneh Esrei, that is how you keep both of them. The einav lamata, the eyes to the bottom, towards the ground, and your heart towards heaven. Adahachi, until meantime, the Rebbe came to the yeshiva. Inu dave kalile, people who were very quick, yasvui b'dichtai, they went right away to their seats. They sat on the floor. Rabbi Shmuel Rabbi Yossi, agav yukre, he was a heavy person. He would be stepping on people, over people, to get to his position in the lecture that Rebbe was going to give. Amalei Abdam, so Rebbe's attendant, whose name was Abdam, who's stepping over this holy people? Who's stepping over the heads of the holy students? He was being a little cheeky over here, trying to needle Rabbi Shmuel Rabbi Yossi. Amalei, ani Yishmael Rabbi Yossi. I'm Yishmael Rabbi Yossi. I'm trying to get to my seat. Shabasi Luma Torah Rebbe. I'm coming to learn Torah from Rebbe. Amalei. So Abdon said, are you worthy enough to learn Torah for Rebbe? Who are you? Amalei. So he said, even though I may not be worthy, was Moshe worthy to learn Torah from God? So if Moshe could learn from God, I could learn from Rebbe. Amalei. So Abdon said, are you Moshe like Moshe? Amalei. So he said, is Rebbe God? So basically, there was a back and forth take in front of Rebbe, right? And Rebbe was very, very silent over here. So Rabbi Yosef commented on this back and forth. Shakle Rebbe libitar pase. I don't know what this word limitar pase. Rebbe got his retribution. In other words, Rebbe got punished because in this conversation of heated conversation back and forth, even Rebbe got insulted. The Kamalei, Rab Chovala Rebbe, because Rabbi Shmuel Rabbi Yossi says, he's your rabbi, not my rabbi, even because I'm a great person. I'm son of Rabbi Yossi, and therefore I don't accept Rabbeinu Rabbi Huda Nasi as my rabbi, but I'm coming to learn Torah from him. Adahachi, in the meantime, Asi Yavam Lakamei, the Rebbe, Yevama walked in to the lecture. Amalei Rebbe La Abdon, so Rebbe said to Abdon, she was a young girl and she needed a chalitza. So he told Abdon, take her out, bedaka, check if she has the two hairs to determine if she's over bas mitzvah. You need two hairs under the armpit to prove that you're bas mitzvah. The boss of the Nafik, after they took the girl out, Abdon took the girl out, Amalei Rabbi Shmuel got up and said, Rebbe, you're making a mistake. You don't have to check if she's over bas mitzvah. Kach ama abba. This is what my father said, Rabbi Yossi, ish ksid b'parsha. Only the yavam has to be over bar mitzvah. Isha ben gedola ben ketana. Whether a woman doesn't matter. No matter if she's old or young, she could do the chalitza. Even if she's below bas mitzvah. Amalei taught. So he called back Abdon and said, "Like tzrichat, we don't need you anymore. This old man paskin for us over here that we don't have to check if the girl is over bas mitzvah." So the lecture wanted to continue. Kamafsa Abdon v'osid. Abdon started stepping over people to get back to his seat. So now Rabbi Shmuel Rabbi Yossi taunted him. Amalei Rabbi Shmuel Rabbi Yossi. Rabbi Shmuel Rabbi Yossi said, "Mi shetzarach lo am kodesh." The person who the holy people need, in other words, me, they needed me to bring up the halacha over here. Yefaseh has permission to step over al Roshi Am Kodesh, to step over the heads of the people. Again, these people were sitting on the floor. So I had the right, even though I shouldn't be doing that, but because the people need me for my Torah knowledge, I have the permission to step over the heads of people. But you, Abdon, Misha Ein Tzarech Lo Am Kodesh, the holy people don't need you. Hey, Chafasa al Roshi Am Kodesh. What gives you the right to step over the heads of the people? Amalei Rebbe LaAbdon. Rabbi started joining in now on the conversation, and he realized Abdon was caught by something he taunted Rabbi Shmuel Rabbi Yossi. Now he himself was doing the same thing wrong. Kum b'duchtech, stay in your place, don't move, and stay there for the rest of the lecture. Tano, the Brisa taught, at that moment that Abdon stayed in his place at home, nitztareya Abdon, he got very sick, he got leprosy. Not only that, lo yaleinu v'tovu shnei banav, his children who were married drowned. And I guess they're saying that they drowned, so they couldn't find the bodies, so that his daughter-in-laws were not released. I think this is what it means, that his daughter-in-laws were not released to marry somebody else. And Lo Yaleinu, he had other two sons who were married to girls under Bas Mitzvah, Umenayo Shtei Chaloisav, and they annulled the marriages, his two daughter-in-laws, to his two other kids that were married, to girls under bas mitzvah. They annulled the marriage. So his family came apart, and he himself became sick. Amar Rab Nachman Yitzchak. Presumably, that's because he taunted Rabbi Shmuel bar Rabbi Yossi. So Rabbi Shmuel bar Nachman Yitzchak says, don't feel bad for Abdam. Bless God, he punished and embarrassed Abdam b'hai alma in this world. Whatever suffering that a person goes on in this world, you should know that's a blessing. Because when he comes to the real truthful world, he's not going to need to suffer because he did it in this world, and he gets full forgiveness. Amar Rab Ami. Rab Ami said, "Midivarav shel Rabbi Nilmait." From this story, we learn that it doesn't matter. Even if she's, let's say, 6 years old, this katana could do chalitza, because we know now a girl under bas mitzvah. It doesn't say how much under bas mitzvah, so we can assume that even if she's 6 or 7 years old, she knows what a chalitza is. She can do the chalitza. Rava Amar Rava says disagrees. Even though we don't need over bas mitzvah, we need her to be at least 11 years old. You can't, even if you say that a katana could do it, but not lower than 11 years old. The hilkasa, but the halacha is not this way. The halacha is that, like Rab Meir, like we have in the Mishnah, we need her to be over bas mitzvah and prove that she's over bas mitzvah in order to validate a chalitza. Be'ez Hashem, we'll continue tomorrow with Cholza B'Shnayim.
Beautiful, Daf. Very nice.